Meeting with legal about Edmund Ross. Maya blinked. He's still around? Not for long, Natalie said, her tone clipped. Turns out, Edmund's been covering more than your incident. HR just opened an investigation into his misuse of discretionary funds, expense fraud, and a pattern of silencing employee complaints. Maya's breath caught. And he's still walking free? For now, but not for long. Richard wants it handled by the book. Clean. Maya nodded slowly. Good. Let him fall the right way. Natalie led her to her office, a corner space with sunlight flooding in through two massive windows. A long wooden desk. Bookshelves lining one wall. A pinboard with staff feedback suggestions already posted. She was stunned to see one card that read, "If Maya's running things, I finally believe change is real." She set her bag down. "Thank you, Natalie," Maya said sincerely. Natalie gave her a look, something that hovered between admiration and apology. "You deserve more than just a thank you, but we'll start there." After Natalie left, Maya took a few quiet moments alone. She sat at her desk, ran her hand over the smooth surface, and allowed herself a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding since the day she was fired. She opened her laptop and began drafting her first internal memo, but not everyone was thrilled. Across town, in a dimly lit conference room of a high-rise Maya would never have stepped foot in, Edmund Ross poured bourbon into a glass with a shaking hand. The news had reached him faster than expected. Richard Kane was building a new department and putting her in charge. Her, the cleaner. He stared at the photo on his phone. Maya standing with her arm around her daughter in a staged press release Richard had authorized the night before. The headline read, "Richard Kane appoints first woman of color to head Kane Global Wellness Program." Edmund's jaw clenched. He had built this company's HR infrastructure from scratch. Decades of meetings, legal shields, discreet firings, non-disclosure agreements signed in silence. And now, this woman, this janitor, was being handed a throne he considered his legacy. He tapped his phone and dialed a number. "Yeah," a man's voice answered. "It's Ross. I need a favor. Quiet. Off the books." "Men." "Go on. You ever heard of a woman named Maya Williams?" A pause. "The one who saved Kane? She's all over the damn news." "Exactly. I want you to find something on her. Anything. Old debt. Expunged record. Bad boyfriend. Doesn't matter. I want her discredited. That'll cost you." "I didn't ask for the price." The line clicked dead. Meanwhile, back at the annex, Maya was busy. She spent the rest of the day interviewing staff, receptionists, night shift maintenance, cafeteria workers, people who had never once been asked how they were doing. She filled 3 notebooks with notes. Chronic fatigue. No transportation assistance. Microaggressions ignored by middle managers, and a disturbing number of reports of janitorial staff being verbally abused by executives. At one point, a young woman named Carmen teared up when Maya simply asked, "What's something that would make you feel respected?" "No one's ever asked me that," Carmen whispered. Maya's voice was steady. "I'm asking now." She left the office at 6:30 p.m., the sun just beginning to dip behind the skyline. As she stepped outside, a breeze caught her coat and stirred the edges of her confidence. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, Maya walked away from her workplace not looking over her shoulder. Back home, Daisy greeted her with a crayon drawing of a tall building with hearts on the roof. "That's your office," she said proudly. Maya laughed, scooping her into her arms. "I think we need to add some windows." "I already did," Daisy said, tapping the paper, "so everyone can see you." As she tucked Daisy in that night, Maya whispered, "You're the reason I keep going." Daisy, already dozing, murmured, "You're the strongest lady in the world." Maya kissed her forehead. But outside, in the shadows of digital silence, someone was already digging. The following morning began with rain. Not a gentle drizzle, but a hard, unrelenting downpour that beat against the city's windows like it had a vendetta. Maya stood at her kitchen sink, her coffee cooling in her hand, as thunder rolled far in the distance. The storm hadn't woken her. Her instincts had. Something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it, but it sat in her gut like a stone. Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Natalie, call me when you get this. Something's come up." She called instantly. Natalie answered after the first ring. "We need to talk. Privately." Maya's spine straightened. I'm listening. There's been a leak, Natalie said, voice low and clipped. Nothing big yet. A few online posts. Suspiciously coordinated. Your old eviction records, hospital records, even a juvenile misdemeanor that was sealed. Someone's trying to smear you. Maya's hand tightened around the coffee mug. How bad is it? Contained, for now. I've already got our legal and PR teams preparing countermeasures. But the bigger concern is how someone got those records at all. There was only one name that came to Maya's mind. Ross, she said quietly. Natalie didn't reply, but the silence was confirmation enough. He's scared, Maya said. Scared that a woman like me could have power he never gave. Well, he's about to be more than scared, Natalie replied. Richard is furious. Maya exhaled slowly. Let him be. I'm not hiding. We didn't think you would, Natalie said. Just be prepared. Today might not be easy. By the time Maya arrived at Kane Global's annex, the storm had lightened to a mist, but the tension inside the building was heavier than ever. Employees greeted her with tight smiles, supportive, but cautious. Rumors were already in the air. The whispers weren't malicious, but they were there. Did you see that post about her? They said she used to have a record. I don't care. She's better than half the execs I've worked under. Maya walked with her head high. She stepped into her office to find a bouquet of fresh sunflowers on her desk and a handwritten card. The truth is louder than their noise. Keep walking. RK. She smiled faintly, but her hands were shaking. Within the hour, she called an all-staff meeting. Every employee on the floor gathered in the common space admin, security, cafeteria, maintenance, and even junior executives who had never once attended an open meeting before. Maya stood at the front, without podium or preamble. You've probably seen the headlines, she began, or heard the whispers. No one looked away. A lot of people want you to believe that your past disqualifies you from having a future. That one mistake or even one hard season should silence your voice permanently. May. Her voice was steady now. Well, I disagree. She walked slowly across the space. Yes. I was evicted. Yes. I've had overdue bills. Yes. I had a minor on my record when I was 16 because I stole a bottle of cough syrup for my sick mom when we couldn't afford medicine. It was sealed. I'm not ashamed. She paused. Because those things made me who I am. And if someone thinks that disqualifies me from leading a department focused on dignity and wellness, then they don't understand what this department is for. A murmur of quiet support rippled through the room. This space is for the people who never got to sit at the table, the ones who've been told to keep their heads down, to be grateful for scraps. The ones who know what it's like to cry in a supply closet and still show up the next day smiling. She took a breath. You don't have to be perfect to fight for justice. You just have to show up, and I'm here. A janitor from the night crew, a wiry man named Eli, clapped. A second later, so did Carmen. Then others followed. The applause grew, echoing across the open floor like a drumbeat. When it faded, Maya simply nodded. Thank you. Now let's get back to work. Across town, in a sleek boardroom at the original Kane Global headquarters, Richard sat with his legal counsel and HR executives. On the screen before them, screenshots of the smear campaign, digital footprints, payment records to a private security firm. I want his badge revoked, Richard said coldly. Today. Already done, said Natalie, standing at his side. He's burned every bridge in this company, Richard continued, and he just gave us the gasoline to finish the job. One of the lawyers hesitated. We still need to prepare for retaliation. If Ross goes public, let him, Richard interrupted. I have no interest in protecting Rod anymore. That man buried good people for years. It ends now. The room fell silent. Then Richard stood. And make it clear, he added. Anyone who targets Maya Williams is targeting this company's values, and they'll answer to me. Later that afternoon, Maya sat in her office when a knock came at the door. It was Natalie. I thought you should see this, she said, handing over a thick file. What is it? Internal report. Ross's termination documents, full audit results. There's also a written apology in there from Richard. He asked legal to include it in the company archives. Permanently. Maya turned the pages slowly. At the bottom was a scanned signature, Richard Kane, and below it, a single line in his handwriting. We failed you, but you stood anyway. Now we stand with you. Maya closed the file gently. She wasn't naive. The shadows weren't gone. The world didn't fix itself overnight. But the difference was, now, when they came for her, she wasn't standing alone. She picked up her pen and returned to her notes. There was still work to be done. The following week, Maya was invited to attend her first executive leadership roundtable. Not as an observer, not as a silent seat in the back, but as a voting member of the team. Her name had been added to the official board email. Her bio appeared on the Kane Global website, accompanied by a photo one that actually looked like her, curls out, chin raised, eyes steady. The meeting was held in a sleek, circular room with high-backed leather chairs and a skyline view that stretched across Lake Michigan. Maya arrived 15 minutes early, as she always did, dressed in a dark blazer over a soft gray blouse. She carried a simple notepad, not because she couldn't work digital, but because there was something grounding about putting pen to paper. Richard arrived second. He greeted her with a quiet smile and a nod of mutual respect. Others trickled in: department heads, legal advisors, CFOs. Maya recognized most of them by name. Several she'd cleaned offices for over the years. Few made eye contact now. When everyone was seated, Richard stood at the head of the table. "We have 2 items on today's agenda," he began. "First, finalizing our end-of-year financial realignment. Second, and more importantly, the presentation of our new internal wellness framework developed by Maya Williams, Director of Employee Equity and Well-Being." Maya didn't move at first. The silence felt thick, like the room was holding its breath. Then Richard gestured. "Maya?" She stood, walked to the center screen, inserted her USB. Her heart was pounding. A slide deck loaded. The title, "Dignity is Not Optional." She cleared her throat, then looked up. "I won't take more than 10 minutes of your time, but I will ask for your full attention. Because this plan isn't about numbers. It's about people." She clicked to the first slide. 3 janitors injured on the job in the last fiscal year. None filed official complaints. 2 cafeteria workers hospitalized due to untreated stress conditions. 4 employee suicides company-wide since 2019. Not one of them qualified for full wellness coverage, Maya said. Not one received paid time off beyond mandatory state minimums. And when we reached out to their families, only one even knew they had access to a grievance system. She clicked again. "This department will change that." Slide by slide, she walked them through the structure. Support counselors on every floor, confidential grievance processes outside of traditional HR, anonymous satisfaction surveys with built-in follow-up systems, and a rotating advisory board made of non-executive employees from every branch of the company. A soft murmur grew. Then she clicked to the final slide. A single quote filled the screen. "A system that does not listen cannot lead." Silence. Then Richard stood again. "Thank you, Maya. We'll now open the floor to comments and votes on implementation." The first comment came from a man in legal. "The structure is impressive, but, with respect, it could set a dangerous precedent. Oversight outside of HR? A non-executive advisory board? You're empowering people who don't understand the complexity of operations." Maya didn't flinch. "Sir, respectfully, they understand the complexity better than most of us ever will. Because they live it." "Oh," another executive chimed in, a woman this time. "I've reviewed the proposal in depth. There's nothing in it that threatens compliance. In fact, it could protect us from future liability. What Miss Williams is suggesting is visionary." More voices joined, some courteous, some supportive. Then someone said it. "Why her?" The voice came from the far side of the room. A new VP of something. Maya hadn't caught his name. He sat with his arms folded, gaze sharp. "We've had wellness programs before. Consultants, experts, people with MBAs. This woman, no offense, was cleaning bathrooms a month ago. Why does she get the final say?" The room went still. Maya looked directly at him. "Because I've seen every hallway in this company from the ground floor. I've stood next to the people this program is built for. And because I've earned the trust of those who've never trusted anyone in this room." Richard's voice cut through the air. "And because I trust her." No. The vote was taken. Unanimous. The plan passed. Later that afternoon, Maya sat alone in her office, the late-day sun casting a golden hue across her desk. She stared out the window at the city, watching it breathe, cars weaving, people moving like threads in a massive quilt of lives. Her phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. That was masterful. Lunch next week to celebrate? She smiled and typed back, only if it's greasy and comes with fries. Just then, someone knocked at her door. It was Richard. He stepped in, holding a small rectangular box. Can I come in? Of course. He sat across from her and placed the box on her desk. Open it. Inside was a brass plaque, engraved, Maya Williams, Director of Employee Equity and Well-Being, the Heart of Kane Global. She stared at it, stunned. Richard spoke softly. It's not about titles, it's about legacy. And I think you're building something that'll outlive all of us. Maya ran her fingers over the words. This isn't just about me, she said. This is for all the people who never got to be seen. Richard stood. Then let's make sure they always are. She watched him leave, the plaque still resting in her hands. For a long time, she didn't move. She just sat there, holding proof that sometimes even after betrayal, even after blood and storm and fear, justice could still have a face. And hers was finally one of them. The trouble didn't come loudly. It came in the form of a spreadsheet. Maya had been in her office late that Tuesday evening, the sun barely hanging on to the horizon, when Carmen from payroll stopped by looking pale. Miss Williams, she said, her voice low, I think you need to see this. Maya looked up from her laptop. Carmen rarely came by after hours. Her eyes were glassy, and she was gripping a USB drive like it might burn her fingers. Close the door, Maya said quietly. Carmen did. She plugged in the USB and opened a file titled KGL, Internal Allocations, Q, 4 Revised, XLSX. Maya's eyes scanned the document. Line by line. Number by number. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Then she spotted it. A set of shadow funds labeled Well-Being Initiatives, Discretionary, pulling from departments that had never agreed to any contributions. Numbers had been shifted, totals misrepresented. It looked, at first glance, like a budgeting error. But it wasn't. These aren't just typos, Maya said. No, ma'am, Carmen whispered. Someone's using our new wellness initiative as a shell to hide internal fund transfers. Quiet ones. I checked the access logs. These edits were made 2 days ago, by someone using Edmund Ross's old credentials. His account should have been deactivated. I thought the same. But whoever it is, either Ross or someone helping him, they're routing the changes through a backend that circumvents regular audit trails. Maya felt her stomach twist. How many people know? Just me. And now you. Good. Keep it that way. She copied the file to her encrypted drive and slid the USB back into Carmen's palm. Delete everything else. This didn't happen tonight. Understand? Carmen nodded. You're going to report it? Maya's jaw set. I'm going to handle it. The next morning, Maya requested an emergency meeting with Richard and Natalie. She walked into the conference room with the kind of calm that masks quiet fury. The kind of calm that black women like her had mastered, not because it was natural, but because it was necessary. Richard was already seated, nursing his second coffee of the day. Natalie had a legal pad open, pen ready. Maya placed the printed spreadsheet on the table. This is sabotage. Richard looked up. Explain. No. She walked them through the audit, every line, every false transaction, every redirection of funds that had not been approved through the board. When she finished, she said, someone's using our program as cover to launder money, and they're using Ross's digital fingerprint to do it. Natalie narrowed her eyes. That's a federal offense. Yes, it is, Maya replied. But if we go straight to the feds, the whole wellness program goes under the microscope. And right now, it's the only thing some of these employees trust. If it collapses before it's even fully grown, the message is clear: people like me don't belong here after all. Richard leaned forward. Then we need to find out who's behind this, and fast. Quietly. Discreetly. I already have one name in mind, Maya said, but I'm not accusing anyone without proof. Natalie asked, you want to run the investigation yourself? I want Carmen. She knows the systems. She's smart. And she has no loyalty to the old guard. She's payroll, Natalie said skeptically. She's a genius with numbers, Maya replied. And nobody pays attention to payroll until something explodes. Richard nodded slowly. Give her clearance. But keep it off the books. If word of this gets out, we're done. By Thursday, Carmen had uncovered 3 more instances of financial redirection, all of them traced to shell vendors that had been created during Ross's tenure. None of them had actual addresses. One vendor supposedly billed Kane Global for wellness equipment, but the warehouse listed didn't exist. Another processed therapeutic consulting, but the therapist's license had expired 5 years ago. It was all a lie, a net woven carefully and deeply, and the closer they got, the more Maya felt the heat. Anonymous messages began appearing in her inbox. Stay in your lane, girl. No, you think a maid can fix what men like Ross built? Dig too deep and you'll be buried. Maya didn't tell Richard. Not yet. She wanted facts, not fear. But the most chilling thing came Friday afternoon. She arrived home to find her front door slightly ajar. She pushed it open slowly. Nothing seemed stolen. Daisy was still at school. Elena was napping in her chair. But the box of awards and press clippings from her office had been opened, scattered, and one paper was taped to the fridge, a printout of her employee badge photo, with a single word scrawled in red ink across it. Quit. Maya's knees buckled for just a second. Then she straightened. This was bigger than pride now. It was survival. She called Natalie. We're past whispers. Someone came into my home. I'm calling security now, Natalie said. You'll have private details starting tonight. And we go public Monday, Maya said. I want this exposed. That's a risk. It's a message. No more shadows. If they want a war, they'll have to fight it in daylight. That weekend, Maya barely slept. She made pancakes with Daisy, tended to Elena's garden pots, and smiled through it all. But her eyes were always on the windows. Her ears always tuned to the hallway. She'd been afraid before, but this was different. This was war, and she would not run. By Monday morning, the air was electric. Richard Kane himself had sent a company-wide memo late Sunday night, summoning every department head to an emergency meeting in the main auditorium. It was the first time in the company's history that a non-financial crisis had warranted an all-hands gathering. Employees trickled in slowly, most unaware of what was coming. Maya stood backstage with Natalie and Carmen, the weight of what she was about to do pressing against her ribs like armor. She smoothed the front of her dark blazer. No statement jewelry, no dramatic makeup, just truth, plain and sharpened like glass. Carmen squeezed her arm. You sure? I wasn't last week, Maya replied, but after they came into my home. She looked up at the massive velvet curtain and imagined her mother, long gone, whispering in her ear, Don't you ever let them scare you out of standing tall. Natalie stepped forward. It's time. The curtain drew back. Hundreds of employees filled the auditorium. Middle management, senior executives, HR, legal, cafeteria workers in uniforms, janitors in faded polos. Even security staff stood near the exits, tense but alert. Richard stepped up to the podium first. Good morning, he began, voice firm. Today, transparency matters more than comfort. He gestured to Maya, and for the first time, she stepped into the center of the stage not as a figure of controversy but as the voice of resistance. She looked out across the faces, some skeptical, some supportive, many simply curious. My name is Maya Williams, she said, and I have something you deserve to know. A screen behind her lit up with numbers and charts Carmen's forensic work laid bare for all to see. For weeks now, Maya continued, an unnamed party within this company has been embezzling funds under the cover of the new wellness program. They've rerouted money from ghost vendors, fake consulting agencies, and fraudulent invoices, all with digital fingerprints tied to a system that should have been deactivated months ago. Gasps echoed across the room. Over $1.4 million, she said. Stolen, hidden, and used to quietly fill the pockets of those who never cared about your well-being, only their own survival. A hand shot up from the crowd. Are you saying this was Edmund Ross? Maya didn't blink. I'm saying his system was the gateway, but others used it after he left. We're still investigating, but evidence suggests there's an internal network protecting those responsible. The room buzzed louder, now murmurs, glances, shifting stares, and then another voice rose from the audience, this time skeptical, almost mocking. You expect us to believe you figured all this out? Maya looked toward the voice. A regional VP, smug, cross-armed. I didn't figure it out alone, she said. I had help. From someone in payroll. Someone who'd been told her whole life to keep her head down. She paused. And maybe you don't believe me. Maybe you think this is about revenge or ego. But I stand here today because someone tried to frighten me into silence. They came into my house. Taped a threat to my fridge. My fridge. The auditorium went dead silent. Now, I may have started here with a mop in my hand, Maya continued, voice rising, but I don't scare easy, and I will not back down. She turned to Richard, who gave her the faintest nod. Maya faced the crowd again. Every single employee, whether you wear a suit or a smock, deserves protection, fairness, and truth. And if this company wants to claim it stands for those things, now's the time to prove it. Thunderous applause broke out, but not from everyone. From the side aisle, a man in a navy suit quietly slipped out of the room. Carmen spotted him first. That's him, she whispered to Natalie. That's one of the shell vendor's signatories. Natalie didn't hesitate. Security now. Within seconds, 2 guards followed the man out the back. An hour later, Maya sat in Richard's office, her hands still trembling, despite her composed exterior. You just threw a grenade, he said with a faint smile. And we needed the explosion, she replied. You did good, Richard said, even if this gets messy. It will get messy, she corrected. They're going to dig into every decision I've made, every step I've taken. But I'm not afraid of being exposed anymore. Richard leaned back in his chair. Neither am I. Natalie stepped in with a folder. Security apprehended the guy. He's already confessed to working with Ross. Turns out he was a contractor hired 2 years ago under a fake consulting deal. FBI's involved now. Maya stood slowly. Then it's finally happening. Yes, Natalie replied. You just tore the veil off a culture that's been broken for decades. That evening, as Maya walked out of the building, the sky had shifted to a deep orange. The rain had returned gentle, cleansing. She walked past the janitorial crew just clocking in. One of them, an older woman with tired eyes, stopped her. I seen you on the news last night, the woman said. You made us proud. Maya smiled, touched. Thank you. Been waiting years for someone like you to sit at that table. Maya nodded, her voice low and certain. Then let's build a bigger table. As the woman walked away, Maya lingered beneath the street lamp, letting the rain hit her face. She didn't know what would come tomorrow: interviews, investigations, maybe even more threats. But today, the truth had been spoken aloud, and it echoed. The morning news was relentless. Every station, every screen, every scroll. Whistleblower exposes $1. APRM, fraud insight came global. From maid to executive, Maya Williams breaks the system wide open. Security breach raises questions about company oversight. Hero or disruptor? The polarizing rise of Maya Williams. Maya sat at her kitchen table, unmoving. The TV was on mute, but the headlines were loud enough without sound. Daisy played with her cereal nearby, humming to herself, blissfully unaware of the weight suffocating the room. Elena stirred her coffee from across the table. They're coming for you next, she said matter-of-factly. Maya didn't answer. People don't like truth-tellers, Elena added, especially when they're women, especially when they're black, and especially when they didn't ask for permission. Maya finally looked up. What am I supposed to do? Hide? Resign? Elena raised a brow. Would that make Daisy safer? The question landed like a punch. Maya sat back, exhaling. I don't want her to grow up thinking courage is something you apologize for. Then don't apologize. By 10 a.m., the media requests had reached full saturation. CNN, NPR, even The Daily Show wanted an interview. Some were genuine. Some just wanted a scandal to poke at. But the worst wasn't from the press. It came from the internet. Anonymous messages flooded her inbox. Go back to cleaning floors. Affirmative action trash. You're not a hero. You're a headache. Maya tried to ignore them, but some slipped through her armor like the one that simply read, We know where your daughter goes to school. She forwarded it immediately to company security and the FBI contact Natalie had set up. Then she sat quietly at her desk, clutching Daisy's drawing from 2 chapters ago, the building with hearts on top. That afternoon, Natalie arranged a private room at Kane Global's headquarters for a press conference. Maya had agreed to one statement, no questions, no podium dramatics, just her words, once, directly. She stood before a row of cameras, her expression calm but deliberate. "My name is Maya Williams," she began, "and I am not your perfect hero." The room went still. "I don't have a pristine resume. I don't come from wealth. I wasn't groomed for leadership. I was a janitor, a single mother, a woman who saw something wrong and chose not to look away." She held the silence for a beat. "I didn't expose this fraud for fame. I did it because real people were being hurt, ignored, manipulated, stolen from. People like me. People who've scrubbed your conference rooms and emptied your trash cans and smiled while pretending not to hear your jokes." She leaned slightly forward, her voice low and steady. "If that makes me disruptive, then I hope more of us rise up to disrupt." She stepped back. No questions, no grandstanding, just truth. Later that week, Maya was called into Richard's office. "You've got a decision to make," he said, handing her a letter. She read the header, "Appointed Representative Congressional Committee on Corporate Ethics and Labor Equality." Her mouth fell open. "You've got to be kidding." "They want you to testify," Richard said. "Not just about Ross, about the culture, the silence, everything." Maya stared at the letter. "They'll dig into me. They already have. I'll be picked apart." Probably." She looked at him. "And you still want me to go?" Richard gave a tired smile. "I don't want you to. But I'll support you if you do." Maya looked out the office window. The city felt far away now, small, even. Like the battles she was fighting had shifted from one company to the entire system. "Elena's right," she said after a long pause. "About what? That people don't like truth tellers. But if we stop telling the truth, then people like Ross keep winning." "Oh." She folded the letter. "I'll go." That night, Daisy crawled into bed beside her, curling into her mother's side like she did when she was little and the world was too big. "Are you going to leave again?" she asked sleepily. "Only for a little while," Maya whispered, brushing back Daisy's curls. "But I'll come back. Promise?" Maya swallowed hard. "I promise." Outside the window, lightning blinked on the horizon. But for now, in this small room with one lamp glowing and a child's breath against her arm, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Stillness. Not because the storm had passed, but because she was learning how to stand in it. The capital was colder than she expected. Not the weather, the building. Marble floors, gilded ceilings, stone eyes staring down from portraits of men who'd never had to punch a time card or choose between rent and groceries. Maya stood in the hallway outside the Congressional Committee chamber, her coat still damp from the rain that had soaked her during the walk from the car drop-off. She looked small in the reflection of the polished glass, shoulders squared, jaw tight, heart pounding. Richard had flown in with her, but he was 2 doors down now, talking with their legal counsel. He'd offered to speak on her behalf. She'd said no. This was hers. "Miss Williams?" a young staffer called, holding a clipboard. She nodded. "They're ready for you." The room was large but quiet. 6 representatives sat behind a curved mahogany table. Cameras rolled silently at the back. Reporters scribbled with anticipation. She walked to the witness table and took her seat. No one spoke yet. They were watching her, measuring her. One of the representatives, an older white man with silver hair and a sharp blue tie, leaned forward. "Miss Williams, thank you for being here." Thank you for having me," Maya replied, steady. "You've made quite an impact. Not just on Kane Global, but on corporate accountability as a whole. You've exposed a major fraud scheme and highlighted deeply rooted cultural issues inside one of the country's most influential companies." Maya didn't respond. She knew better than to fall into polite praise. She waited. The representative continued. "Before we begin formal questions, is there anything you'd like to say?" She took a breath, looked straight ahead. "Yes." She opened a worn notebook, the same one she'd used at Kane Global, now filled with scribbles and headlines. "I didn't come here to perform," she began. "I'm not an activist by design. I'm not a politician. I was a janitor. Then a mother. Then someone who saw something wrong and said, no." The chamber stilled. I've been called brave, reckless, a hero, a problem, but all I really did was refuse to look away when people who looked like me were being used, then discarded. She closed the notebook. And if you want a solution today, I'll give you one. Listen to the people no one listens to. You'd be shocked what they know. The questions began. Some were sharp, political. Miss Williams, are you suggesting that every corporation suffers from this level of corruption? No, Congressman, but many of them suffer from silence. And silence is where corruption breeds. Others tried to catch her off guard. Would you say Kane Global's diversity programs were a failure? No, ma'am. I'd say they were decorative, not foundational. Even Richard flinched at that, but Maya didn't. The toughest came from a representative from Arizona, a known skeptic of corporate regulation. Miss Williams, you've gained quite a platform. Some say your story is being used to push a narrative, one where businesses are cast as villains and whistleblowers are turned into celebrities. How do you respond to that? Maya looked him straight in the eye. I didn't want a platform, she said. I wanted a paycheck, but I earned a platform when the system tried to punish me for saving a man's life, and I earned it again when they tried to bury the truth under paperwork and security badges. A ripple of murmurs. The camera flash flickered. I'm not a celebrity, she finished. I'm evidence. After 2 hours, the session adjourned. Richard found her outside, standing under the columns, staring out at the Washington skyline, her coat pulled tight. You didn't blink, he said. I wanted to, she admitted. When that guy asked me about being a celebrity, I wanted to throw the mic at his face. Richard chuckled. But I didn't, Maya added, because Daisy's going to watch this one day, and I want her to see what restraint looks like. Richard sobered. You did more than represent Kane Global today. You represented every woman who's ever been told to wait her turn. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Maya asked, do you think they'll actually do anything, policy-wise? Richard hesitated. Some will, some won't. But they can't say they didn't know anymore. That's something, I guess. No, he corrected. That's everything. Icles. Back at the hotel that night, Maya sat on the bed, legs curled under her, as the broadcast replayed clips from her testimony. Daisy's voice rang out from the other end of the phone. Mommy, you were on TV. Maya smiled, heart warm. I was, baby. Did you watch it with Elena? Uh-huh. She said you made a bunch of men very nervous. Maya laughed. She's not wrong. Are you coming home soon? Yes, tomorrow. Good. I saved you the last cookie. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you. I love you more. She hung up and stared at the TV again. The anchor's voice played over a clip of her closing remarks. I'm not a symbol of perfection. I'm a reminder that anyone, no matter where they start, can walk into the lion's den and tell the truth out loud. Maya turned off the TV because she didn't need to hear it again. She was already living it. The plane landed just after 7 p.m. Maya stepped onto the jet bridge, exhausted but composed, her leather bag slung over her shoulder. She wore no makeup, no heels, just sneakers and a gray sweatshirt Daisy had drawn on with fabric markers. My mom is braver than Batman. A car from Kane Global was waiting for her at the curb. But Maya asked the driver to take the long way home. She needed time to think. Time to breathe. She'd spoken truth to power in Washington, but the pressure hadn't faded, it had deepened. She was no longer just Maya the maid, or Maya the miracle. She was now Maya the disruptor, the symbol, the threat to the old order. And when you burn old houses down, the smoke doesn't ask who was innocent. Daisy was asleep when Maya got home. Elena had left the porch light on, and the small house smelled like lentil soup and lavender candles. Maya exhaled for the first time in hours. She tiptoed into Daisy's room, kissed her forehead, then went to the kitchen. There, waiting at the table with a glass of wine, was Elena. Washington make you a star yet? Elena asked, half grinning. Not a star, Maya replied. Just a bigger target. She poured herself tea and sat down. The two women sat in familiar silence, sipping, letting the warmth of the room push the cold world outside for a little while. But then Elena cleared her throat. I got a call today, she said, not meeting Maya's eyes. Maya raised an eyebrow. From who? Your sister. Huh. Maya tensed. Janelle, we haven't spoken in years. What did she want? To warn you. Maya slowly put her cup down. She says someone's been offering money to dig into your past. Real money. Old boyfriends. Employers. High school teachers. Maya's stomach dropped. Who? She didn't say, but she said one name came up that made her nervous. Maya leaned in. Who? Elena looked directly at her. James. Maya went still. James, Daisy's father. The man who disappeared before Daisy was born. The man who, last Maya had heard, had cleaned out a joint account and left town. He's in Chicago, Elena continued. Has been for 2 weeks. He's talking to someone from the press. Possibly more. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. He swore he'd stay gone. People break promises, Elena said softly. Especially when there's a paycheck attached. Maya stood and walked to the window, gripping the edge of the curtain as if the wind outside might rip it open. He's not going to hurt her, she said. I won't let him. Elena was quiet for a beat. Then she said, It's not Daisy he's after. It's you. The next morning, Kane Global's media team received a leak. A blog post had gone viral overnight, titled, The Truth About Maya Williams. Is the whistleblower hiding her own past? It was trash, sensational, speculative, but the kind of trash that stuck. It claimed Maya had once been arrested for assault, false. That she'd falsified references on her cleaning job application, ridiculous. And that she was a neglectful mother who abandoned her child for corporate fame. Underneath the byline, contributed anonymously by a former romantic partner of Miss Williams. Maya stared at the screen in Richard's office. He paced slowly behind her. James did this, she said quietly. Richard looked at her. You want me to respond legally? No, you'd only give it oxygen. You want us to go public with your real story? No, she said again. They'd twist it, use Daisy's name, pull pictures. Richard sat down beside her. I can handle it, Maya said. But it's a distraction, and it's meant to make me slip. He nodded, but his jaw clenched. Then we do what they hate most. What's that? We keep building. That afternoon, Maya held a team meeting in the wellness annex. The media firestorm hadn't reached the lower ranks yet, and she wasn't about to let it bleed down into fear. I know things feel heavy, she said to her staff Carmen, Natalie, and half a dozen others who had stood by her since the beginning. But nothing that's true has changed. We're still here, still working, and no blog post gets to define us. Carmen raised her hand. What if it keeps getting louder? Maya smiled grimly. Then we outwork it. We make so much good noise they can't hear the lies over the truth. They clapped. It wasn't just morale, it was loyalty, not to a symbol, but to a woman who kept showing up. That night, Maya sat on the couch after Daisy had gone to bed, flipping through an old photo album. There, pressed between 2 pages, was a picture of her and James, young, naive, both smiling too hard. She almost didn't recognize herself. She studied her face. The girl she used to be. Then she closed the album. She wasn't her anymore. She was something forged, something harder, and still, somehow, still tender. A text buzzed on her phone. From Natalie. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we rebuild. Maya replied. We never stopped. Nah. But in a dim bar across town, James sat across from a second reporter. He sipped his drink and smirked. She always wanted to look good, even when she was lying. He tapped the screen of his phone. Wait till you hear what she did the year before Daisy was born. The storm had moved in overnight. Rain lashed the windows as Maya stood at the edge of her living room, watching the streetlights blur through the glass. The wind howled like a warning, but inside, the house was calm. Daisy slept upstairs. Elena snored faintly from her recliner. And Maya, well, Maya was no longer afraid of storms. The exposé had dropped that morning. A full-page feature from a national tabloid titled, From Housekeeper to Hypocrite, The Untold Past of Maya Williams. It recycled the same lies James had spun, manipulated timelines, twisted truths, half-whispers dressed up as scandal. They dredged up her past, her mistakes, even her decision to keep Daisy despite being alone and broke. What the article didn't include: the time she walked 5 miles to a hospital in the middle of the night when Daisy had a fever of 104. The months she lived off ramen to afford tutoring sessions. The nights she read by flashlight in the janitor's closet just to finish her online coursework. Because those things didn't sell. They just built character. Richard called first. We'll issue a formal response, he said, full backing from the board. Maya said, "No." 1. "Excuse me?" "No press conference, no firestorm. They want outrage. Let's give them something worse." Silence. Richard hesitated. "You sure?" "Yes," Maya said, "but I will respond, just not the way they expect." 2 days later, Maya walked into Kane Global's community center, an old, converted warehouse in the south side of Chicago. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie that read, "I see you." It was packed with employees, families, retirees, and even a few curious journalists. A new initiative was launching that day. The Maya Fund, a non-profit branch under Kane Global dedicated to supporting single parents in corporate environments. Childcare subsidies, mental health access, career reentry programs. It was the first of its kind on a national scale, and Maya was its face. She took the mic not for damage control, but for mission. "Some of you have read things about me lately," she said, smiling faintly. "Some true, some twisted, and some just flat-out trash." Ugh. Laughter rippled through the room. "But let me clarify something right now. I have never been perfect. I have messed up. I've fallen. I've made choices. I had to survive. But every step I've taken has been toward a future where women like me don't have to beg to be seen." She paused. "This fund isn't about me. It's about you. It's about rewriting the story before someone else writes it for you." Thunderous applause. Afterward, a young single father approached her with tears in his eyes. "I didn't think anyone remembered us. You reminded me we matter." Maya shook his hand firmly. "You've always mattered. You just needed a mic." That night, Maya returned home to find a letter on her doorstep. No return address, just her name. Inside was a photo of her and James, the original from that old album. Folded behind it, a note in his handwriting. "You won, but they'll never stop looking for cracks. Stay sharp. For Daisy." She burned the note in the kitchen sink. The next morning, Maya walked Daisy to school. The sun had returned, and the sidewalks were lined with golden leaves. As they reached the front gate, Daisy stopped and looked up. "Mommy? Yeah? Are you still famous?" Maya knelt beside her. "Baby," she said, brushing a curl from her daughter's cheek. "I'm not trying to be famous. I'm trying to be useful." Daisy nodded slowly, then gave her mom a hug that held more wisdom than her 7 years could explain. Weeks passed. The tabloids moved on. The trolls found other targets. But Maya's work remained. Her name was added to the permanent board of trustees at Kane Global. She began consulting for companies across the country, teaching them not how to be perfect but how to listen. And one quiet afternoon, as the city hummed beneath her, Maya returned to the rooftop where it all began, where she had once wiped windows unnoticed, while men in suits walked past her. She looked over Chicago, not with bitterness, but with belief. Behind her, Richard stepped into the sunlight, holding a coffee. "Big day tomorrow," he said. "The governor wants to honor you at the State House." Maya smiled, sipping her drink. "I'm not doing it for the medals." "I know, but take them anyway. You earned it." They stood in silence for a while, watching the clouds drift. Then Maya said, "Justice doesn't always look like a gavel or a verdict. Sometimes, it just looks like getting the last word." Richard grinned. "Well, Maya, you got it." She turned to him. "Not yet." And with that, she walked back inside where 1,000 stories were still waiting to be changed. Maya Williams' journey teaches us that courage isn't always loud sometimes. It's found in quiet acts of persistence, in choosing integrity over comfort, and in standing tall even when the world tries to silence you. Her story reminds us that justice isn't about perfection. It's about refusing to let fear dictate our truth. No matter where you come from or how the world sees you, your voice matters, and when used with purpose, it can become a force that changes everything.